Welcome back. It is Bones, and in this one, let's do a little topic video. Now, I do these every once in a while when a topic comes up in the action figure community that I would like to talk about and discuss. Now, this one is quite interesting because really not a lot of people are talking about it. And also, there's a lot of speculation and unknown. So, kind of a topic where we're just talking about what could happen. So, this is just a discussion. Nothing is set in stone, but it's all up in the air at this point. And this is going to be about the Diamond Select Distributor Company filing for bankruptcy. Now, filing for bankruptcy is a pretty tricky subject because it doesn't always mean that it is like the complete end for a company. They can always restructure or cut off the excess fat, run a more streamlined business, and try to get back to a properly running company. But the thing about this is that they owe a lot of different entities millions of dollars. So this is not something small. And even if they were to file for bankruptcy, redo all their business workings, they would have a hard time getting back into the good graces of a lot of these companies. Now, I didn't know this, but a lot of the companies are Hasbro, through them, Disney, Mcfarlane even is in there. And the majority of this is a lot of smaller, independent comic book companies and distributors. So it is rather interesting the way this has all played out. And once again, we're not talking small change here. This is, around 30, 50, up to $100 million that the company owes to a lot of other companies. And a lot of other companies are going to have to just bite it or wait to get money back, but of course, it will not be what they are completely owed. And that will definitely leave a bad taste in their mouth with Diamond and the people running it. Now, Diamond Select publishing, distribution is the biggest part of the company, and they dealt a lot with distributing comics from all different kinds of publishers to other outlets and distributors, which would mean stores, smaller comic book shops. But another part of their business was licensing from other companies with their properties because Diamond Select, Diamond Publishing doesn't own any properties. So anything that they did or made or were using, a lot of the times they were having to license out from other companies. And in reality, in the end, I'm not a big comic book guy anymore. I stopped, collecting comics years ago, reading them even less. And I can't tell you the ins and outs of what part Diamond plays in the comic book industry as a whole. I'm not sure. But there is something interesting that does pertain to me or that I'm interested in what's going to be the final verdict. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What I am more interested is in their toy subdivision line, which is where they produce different toys licensed from other companies. One of the main ones being Marvel Select. Now, this is where they work side to side with Hasbro, making contracts with them. But at the same time, we know Disney owns the Marvel licensing. But I do know that they have dipped their toes in different things. I think The Rocketeer, Walking Dead. I mean, there's so many things I don't even really know what Diamond Select makes in a whole, but they made like little Marvel minifigures. And in the end, the big thing is the 7-inch license for Marvel Select. And we have to remember that this isn't their main form of income. That is the comics publishing part of their business. But they also branched out a lot into making a lot of different toys and statues. Now, I'm sure if they owe Hasbro or Disney any kind of money, it doesn't really play out well for them, especially because you can tell that the Marvel Select line, although it doesn't have the biggest fan backing like Marvel Legends does. They kind of treated it like a little side project, releasing figures very sporadically, very far apart, changing up the designs and the articulation. Now, I think in the articulation, what I've learned in researching and investigating this thing before I talked about it, they have it in their contract where they have a certain amount of articulation points that they can have. So they're never going to have 20 or more points of articulation. So that's why they're reduced more to almost having statue like figures that have limited articulation, or at the maximum, I think it's like 16 points of articulation. But this also in turns that they have some really nice looking Marvel Select figures that are sculpted out way more than Marvel Legends are. But at the same time, they do have some pretty horrendous releases, and of course, they're not as articulated as Marvel Legends, but they do sculpt out a lot more detail, and sometimes even aesthetically are way more pleasing than Marvel Legends. Now, it was interesting to see the fans' reaction to this, and I did go back and look at some Marvel Select reviews. You could see my boy Pack Photos. He did a review of the 7-inch classic Captain America, which a lot of people really enjoyed. But it was kind of funny to see their reaction in the comments. And although they did give it praise for the design and the different looks you can have, they always went back to the same points, and that was that it doesn't have the same articulation as a Legends figure. And the biggest negative that they saw was that it was in a 7-inch scale, which I think that was the most hate I saw. Were like, oh, I don't collect 7-inch, 7-inch sucks, or oh, I can't buy this because I only collect 6-inch. And that was the main point of contention that a lot of the Legends collectors had with Marvel Select. Now, this doesn't rule out that they can't use larger figures like Colossus or some bigger figures, because those will probably scale in well with Marvel Legends. But when you're talking of your standard characters like Daredevil or Captain America, of course, or Spider Man, they are not going to match up well with Marvel Legends because they're in a completely larger scale. And in the end, another point I would see was that they release figures so sporadically and nonchalantly that there's no way to build a cohesive collection around Marvel Select. So there was definitely not a love lost for Marvel Select. Marvel Legends fans are strictly Marvel Legends. And although there is a part of the fan base that gives them their praise when they deserve it, there is definitely a smaller base of Marvel Select fans compared to the Legends fans. And of course, this brings in Mcfarlane. Now, we are not sure what will happen to the 7-inch license from Disney or Hasbro, but we do know that Diamond Distributing has started to show their hand a little bit and start talking about downsizing and cutting off a lot of smaller divisions of their company, which really filing for bankruptcy is something that you must do. Now, this opens the opportunity for Mcfarlane to perhaps grab on to that 7-inch license for Marvel characters. Now, what do we know? We do know that Mcfarlane would prefer to make his figures in a 7-inch scale. We also know that if any agreement were to come between Hasbro, which they are talking with Mcfarlane, as well as Disney, which Mcfarlane also has a working relationship with, if any agreement were to be made, I don't think McFarlane would have any problem with using 16 points of articulation. In fact, he would probably be happier to use 5 or maybe even 10 points of articulation. But 16 points of articulation seems to be like enough articulation for McFarlane to be interested in grabbing that license. Now, what would this mean for us? This would mean that if it comes to fruition, we could get 7-inch scaled Marvel characters to match up with our 7-inch DC characters. Now, going back to that classic Captain America, a lot of comments I saw were how perfectly he scaled up with DC Multiverse from Mcfarlane. And that's kind of pushed me to where I might even want to order one of these Marvel Select Captain America for myself and see how he looks compared to these DC Multiverse. The 7-inch scale being a perfect fit. And not only that, but at this point in time, where Mcfarlane is kind of hitting his stride, really releasing a lot of great looking figures with great articulation, great sculpt, and great design. It would be very interesting to see Mcfarlane get a somewhat open Marvel character license, being able to add what he's learned from the first few years of doing articulated DC characters into doing Marvel characters. Now, of course, our dream would be to see a McFarlane Spider Man, Venom, Wolverine, Incredible Hulk, all of these characters in a larger scale with a McFarlane twist. And of course, recently we've seen Hasbro has worked in conjunction with McFarlane on the statues that he's been making on the Marvel properties, which, to my surprise, even have been selling pretty well and showing Hasbro and Disney that McFarlane can move product, which, of course, in the end is the bottom line. And Disney and Hasbro would be very happy with that. Now, one big negative that I could see happening if McFarlane were to try and get the 7-inch license, if Diamond Select were to drop it, would be the distribution. And that is because, as we know, Marvel Select is not in every Walmart, Target. Marvel Select is more of a niche line that you have to find mainly at your comic book shop, FYE, or some kind of specialty shops like that. They carry movie and superhero product that are not a main big box store. So that would be a problem because I don't really see Hasbro wanting to have competition in the toy aisle, having a 7-inch version of Spider Man next to a 6-inch Legends version of Spider Man, where that would definitely be conflicting a little bit. They may not want that competition, so it would be interesting to see if this were to happen, where these figures would be sold. But one interesting thing, and how fitting it would be that as much hate as McFarlane has gotten about going to 7-inch, about how Legends fans really detest McFarlane for some strange reason, we would benefit because us as 7-inch DC Multiverse collectors would be the first ones to kind of be able to build a cohesive multi universe where we have our 7-inch DC Multiverse figures pretty much matching up with some 7-inch Marvel characters, which I would definitely be in support of. And in the end, Marvel Legends fans, it would suck for them because they wouldn't get their updated DC characters in a 6-inch scale, which is what they would want to match up for their collection. But in the end, they can always go back and buy those outdated DC Universe Classics figures and be happy with those in their collection. So, anyways, guys, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Nothing is definitive as of now, but it is interesting to open up the conversation about this topic. But as always, keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Fat Man.